But welcome. So this is the December members practice, all about sun salutes. So first off, thank you all so much. I really appreciate that y'all are members and that we get to practice together so frequently. I hope that you're enjoying practicing several times a week. I know that that's really, in my practice, that was really like just such a phenomenal thing to be able to practice, more than sporadically, really get a consistent practice in. And I just think it's so important. So I'm just so thankful that y'all are here practicing with me. And I hope that, you're really enjoying practicing, with regularity and really just noticing, what's coming up with that. So I wanted to do something a little bit special. And so today we're going to do a deep dive into the sun salute. So sun salute A. And so this is really going to be sort of an explorative practice, just to give you sort of a high level overview of what we're going to be doing. It's going to be practice. I'm going to be talking a lot about anatomy and cues and breath and really just exploring all these shapes, because the sun salute's super important to the practice. At least, in my practice and, in many other people's practice too. Because it's one of those universal things that, you can go to a drop-in class with me, and then you could go to a drop-in class across the city at, or step into an Ashtanga class, and you'll run into this sun salute. Different variations, but it's almost a universal language that comes out in the physical practice and the asana practice of yoga. Also, a lot of the cues and things that we find in this really inform the way that breath and movement come together. And they also, a lot of the cues and the body shapings and, the things that we're looking to find in the anatomy and in the structure of the postures, a lot of those things translate not only to the shapes that come in the sun salute, but also to postures beyond that. And I'm sure that as we go through this, you'll probably, start to pick up some repetitive things that keep coming up. And those are things that'll probably come up in different postures throughout the practice. So like I said, we're going to be kind of moving slowly, exploring, really being curious. Going to be going through all these postures, and then we'll do a few flows through. And then I'll leave some time at the end. If you have any questions, we'll probably go like a couple minutes over because I'm talking too much right now. So to start, come to lie down on your back, no props. Just lie down on the back and place your hands somewhere on your torso. It might be at the ribs, it might be at the belly, but put the hands somewhere that you can really feel the experience of the breath in the torso. And so I know we often begin practice this way, but really diving into the actual physicality of this. So actually physically putting your hands somewhere so that you can feel the breath. And what I really invite you to notice is really notice the expansiveness of the torso when you inhale, and how that sort of falls away on the exhale. And really put your hands on the torso, really feel that, really explore. Using the breath to puff up the chest, using the breath to watch the air go out with the hands. It's really focusing in on this expansiveness of the inhale and the collapse of the exhale. Because so much of what makes the sun salute powerful is the link of the movement to the breath. And so we have to talk about the breath being fuel for the movement, but particularly so in the sun salute. because there's an order to the postures and there's a predictability. And so really noticing that the inhale, the chest gets bigger, the body expands, and the exhale, the body gets smaller. And so that's the same experience that we'll be noticing throughout the postures in Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salutation A. That the inhales will be expansive and correlate to expansive postures, postures where the body's getting bigger. And the exhales will correlate to postures where the body might be getting smaller. And so bring your hands down by your sides and engage your feet so that your toes are facing up to the sky. Place the backs of your hands down on the mat. Wiggle your shoulder blades in a bit. And so what we're finding here is Tadasana, but lying down on the back. So the feet are engaged, the feet are very active, the toes are reaching upward. Notice if the calves are making contact with the mat. And the buttocks making contact, the backs of the palms, and the shoulder blades, and the back of the head. And reach out through the heels. Draw the kneecaps up towards the quads so that the tops of the legs begin to turn on. And imagine that you could take your pubic bone and draw it up towards your navel. So imagining that you could tighten up and close in the space between the top of the pelvis and the belly button. And then to the ribs, imagining that the ribs could come in towards one another so that they could hug in towards the center. Now relax the shoulders down and reach the crown of the head towards the top of your mat. Right, and so just lie here with a moment and explore this. This should be fairly active. The toes are up, the heels are reaching, the quads are engaged, low belly is turned on, the ribs are hugging into the midline, the shoulders are relaxed, and the crown of the head is reaching up. And so here, just really noticing where the body is making contact with the mat, the backs of the legs, the buttocks, the shoulders, the head. Essentially what we're doing is we're finding Tadasana, mountain pose, and the starting and ending pose of Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salute A. And so keep this imprint and make your way up to stand. And so have your blocks or your books nearby. And so remembering what we just found on the mat, find that standing. So active feet, pressing down through the feet. Lift the kneecaps upward. Engage the quadriceps. So you're not locking out the knees, but just inviting a firmness to the muscles at the front of the legs. And so draw the pubic bone up towards the navel. So it's a lift upward here. Knit the low ribs in together towards one another. Roll the shoulder blades up to the ears and then roll them back. So what that's doing is it's opening up the front of the chest without drawing the shoulder blades together. So it's really subtle. So if you want to do it again, pull the shoulder blades up to the ears and roll them back and let the palms naturally fall facing towards the front of the space. And so you don't have to crank them forward, just let them fall towards the front of the space. And let the shoulders fall and reach the crown of the head upwards. And so this should be fairly active as well. And so we'll start again at the bottom, just checking in, pressing down through the feet, lifting the kneecaps to engage the quadriceps. Pubic bone reaches up towards navel, low ribs knit together. Shoulder blades gently fall down the back, hands fall by the side, crown of the head reaches upward. And so we're spending so much time here really focusing in on Tadasana because these cues that are coming in Tadasana apply to 95% of the asanas, of the postures that we find in practice. And so let that go and release it and grab your block and place the block between your legs. So it's up above the knees towards the thighs. And so we're going to find this Tadasana again, but with the block between the legs. So before we start moving up, we're going to build all of these postures from the ground up. So really finding a strong foundation for every shape. In all the asanas that we practice, we build them just like we'd build a house with a strong foundation, and then we can get bigger from there. If we start with a messy foundation, there's, really no place for integrity in the upper body if we don't have integrity in the lower body. So really beginning to pay attention to the feet. Spread your toes wide. You can just lightly squeeze in on the block. You don't have to squeeze it so hard, but really just keeping it there. And so really notice the top inner corners of the feet. So just where the big toes meet the foot. And now bring your mind's eye to the outside back edges of the heel. So the outside edges of the heel. And draw a line between the big toe and the back outside edges of the heel. Now doing that on the other side, identifying the points at the top of the feet on the outside edge by the pinky foot, by the pinky toe of the top foot, and then drawing a line underneath there to the inside edges of the heel. So imagining that the foot has 4 points and you're drawing an X between the two to really distribute the weight evenly. We'll squeeze into the block. Notice that engages the front of the hips. Lift the pubic bone up to the navel. Low ribs knit together. Shoulder blades up. Roll them back. Crown of the head up. And so this is Tadasana. Really using the block here, not really as a tool, but just as a reference point. So if you squeeze into the block, notice what happens. Notice where the legs turn on. Notice where the lower abdomen might turn on. And we're going to find all of these relationships in the postures that we're going to. So we're really focusing in on this. And so let that go. And so keeping that in mind, we're going to run through one round of Sun Salutation A. Keeping all that work that we just did in mind, we're going to run through one round just like we normally would in practice. So come to find that Tadasana. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, upward salute, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, forward fold over your thighs. Melt down, Uttanasana. Take a big breath in, inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, plant your hands, step back to high plank, and pause here. Take one big inhale here, and exhale, lower yourself all the way down to the belly. Untuck your toes, take an inhale, peel your head and your shoulder blades up to come into cobra pose. Tuck your toes, big breath out, hips come up and back, downward facing dog. The downward facing dog is the natural pause point in this salute. This is held anywhere between 3 to 5 breaths. It's really a place for calibration, a place for listening. And take one more big breath in here. Exhale, bend your knees, look to the top of the mat, and step or float up to the top of the mat. Use an inhale to come to a flat back, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, arms come up, brings you all the way up to stand, Urdhva Hastasana, upward salute. Exhale, hands down, Tadasana. So that's one full round of sun salute. You're more than welcome to work with or without the block as we move through these next couple postures. The block between the legs is going to be relevant in the next few postures. You could do it in all of them, but I'm going to leave it up to you whether you want to do it there or not. I sometimes think that the feedback can really help keep the legs active and engaged and interested while we start to do things with the arms. So the next posture in this salute is Urdhva Hastasana, arms up alongside the ears. So when you get here, let the shoulders fall down the back. Reach up through the fingertips simultaneously. And exhale, bring your hands back down. So we're going to explore external rotation of the arms. So we'll find this in Urdhva Hastasana, we'll find this in plank, we'll find this in downward facing dog. So reach one of your arms out. With your thumb facing up, grab a hold of your bicep. Now roll your thumb outside. So if you have your left thumb, you'll roll it out to the left to turn your elbow crease up to the ceiling. Right. So when you grab your bicep, you'll notice at some point the bicep begins to roll with the arm. And so that's how you would find the external rotation. It's going to open up the back of the shoulders here. You can explore it on both sides. And just notice how it's not about the hand. The hand can move independently. But the rotation comes from the shoulder. And that's when you begin to notice it. We just use the hand as a reference point. So if you want to explore that, you can sweep both of your arms up. Now, oftentimes you'll hear people cueing, turning your pinkies to the back of the space. That's one way to get the elbow creases towards the back of the room. You can also do it directly from the shoulders. Right. And so in this upward salute, we're finding everything we found in Tadasana. So there's the strong relationship to the ground below. There's the hug of the block. There's the pubic bone pulling towards the navel. The low ribs are engaged. Shoulder blades are relaxed. Arms are reaching up. Crown of the head is reaching up. And exhale, bring your hands down by your sides. Inhale, sweep your arms back up, Urdhva Hastasana. Maybe you hug the block into the legs just to really keep everything working down there. And exhale, bring your hands down by your sides. So the next posture that we'll move into is Uttanasana. That's a forward fold. So inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. You can do this with or without the block, but the real important thing here is you can bend your knees as much as you want to. You can bend your knees deep. But what you're doing is you're pressing down through the feet and lifting the hips upward to the sky. So if you bend your knees so much, that might give you an opportunity to lift the hips up higher. And so your hands can be down on the mat. They can be on blocks. There's really no right or wrong way for these shapes to be done. It's really just exploring the energetic relationships that are happening in the shapes. And so the energetic relationship that's happening in this shape is the feet are pressing down into the mat, the knees are engaged, the front of the legs are engaged, and the hips are reaching upward. And just like in Tadasana, the crown of the head is reaching downward. So we're finding the same relationship of the body that we did in Tadasana, except the body is split at the waist. So there's still the downward energy into the ground and still the upward energy coming out of the crown of the head. Is just the orientation that's changed. And so from this, we get Ardha Uttanasana, which is a halfway lift. So there's many different variations on how you can practice this. You can bring your hands onto the shins, lengthen the crown of the head up, open up the collarbones. Your hands could also be on the thighs. Your hands could be on blocks in front of you. But again, in this shape, exploring how you can find Tadasana in this shape. So there's the press down of the feet, the engagement of the frontal legs, the hips are active and reaching up and back. The crown of the head is reaching forward. There's that expansiveness across the chest. So maybe in this shape, you shrug your shoulder blades up to your ears and then roll them down the back. Right, so shrug them up to the ears again and roll them down to the back and see if that can create length in the spine, energy through the crown of the head, and more openness through the collarbones. Now exhale, fold forward. Uttanasana. Hips reach up, crown of the head reaches down. Inhale, halfway lift. Crown of the head reaches forward. Maybe you reach the shoulder blades up and forward to pull the collarbones forward. Exhale, forward fold. One more time. Inhale, halfway lift. Right? And if you're using your hands, really explore how you can use the hands to create length through the spine. How you can use the hands to leverage that length that you're looking for in Tadasana. The low ribs are knit together. There's a line of energy out the crown of the head. The hips are buoyant. And exhale, fold. And put it all together, root down through your feet. Take a big inhale, sweep your arms all the way up. Urdhva Hastasana, reach up through the fingertips, shoulder blades relaxed. Exhale, hands down by the side. Tadasana. Cool, so those are the first few standing shapes that come up in the sun salute. And so like I said, you can practice all of these with a block or without a block. It's really about finding that connection through Tadasana. So we'll do that through that standing sequence, just one or two more times. I'm gonna work with a block this time. If you've been working with a block, maybe you ditch the block, maybe you introduce a block. We'll really explore how that works. Rooting down through the feet, finding all four corners of the feet, a strong foundation, lifting the kneecaps to engage the frontal hips. Pelvic bone reaches up towards the navel. So imagine that you can firm up this space here. That's pulling towards your center and then hugging your low ribs together. Shoulder blades up and back. Tadasana. Remembering the external rotation, inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Turn your elbow creases towards the back of the space from the shoulder. And exhale, forward fold. So lead with your chest here, keeping that length through the spine as you fold, bending the knees as much as you need to. Inhale, Hands can come to shins, hands can come to thighs. Halfway lift, long spine. Exhale, fold. Hips are high, feet are grounded. Energy is coming out of the crown of the head. Press down into the feet, find that strong foundation. Use a breath in. Big breath in, come all the way up. Arms overhead. Exhale, hands down, Tadasana. One more time, really focusing in on the breath this time. We're getting bigger on the inhale. Arms coming up to Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, we're folding. The belly's emptying, folding forward, letting go. Head hangs down. Now the chest is rising on the inhale. And on the exhale, folding back down. Uttanasana, forward fold. Press down through the feet. Inhale, sweep your arms all the way up. Exhale, hands down. Tadasana. So that's the first standing section. That's the first several poses. You can come down to the knees. The next postures are the planks, the chaturanga, the back bend. I'm going to use the word traditionally here, but I don't like to use that word. So traditionally, the transition of coming from the standing section to the planks and the back bends is a jump through to chaturanga. And chaturanga is a pose that is complicated and nuanced and can be dangerous. I would need an hour and a half to talk about chaturanga, so I'm not going to get too much into chaturanga. The version of the salute that we just practiced at the beginning of practice, coming to the plank and then lowering down through the belly, that's typically what I work with. It accomplishes essentially the same thing. In the plank, you get the opportunity to create space through, through the high plank, which we'll get to in 1 second. But I just want to, if you want to explore how you would go fluidly from the standing into the chaturanga, I'll demo it once. You can do it once. But again, chaturanga is really complicated, and we'll kind of get into that in a minute. But I just want to sort of show how we're going to travel from there. So you're more than welcome to practice this too if you'd like. We got the inhale, arms coming up. Exhale, forward fold. And there's the inhale, halfway lift. And then in the exhale, the hands come down and it jumps straight back into this low push-up. And then comes into the inhale for the upward facing dog. So it's in the traditional version of the salute, it's one fluid movement that happens there. But that's a complicated, demanding transition. And if we're going to be doing that, 5, 6, 7 times throughout practice, that can be really taxing on the body. And, it might be doable the first time. It might be doable 20 times in a practice, but it might only go well once. And then you're diving into your chest and really doing damage. So that's the traditional movement. I just want to acknowledge that and let that be out there. And we'll explore that later. But for the intents of tonight's workshop, I really want to just jump right into plank, high plank, and how we travel into the back bending from there. So you can come into a tabletop position. And so now we're in tabletop position. Spread the fingertips wide. All right, spread the fingers as wide as possible and plant them generally underneath the shoulders. And so it fits differently in everybody's body. Say generally under the shoulders, as opposed to out here or out here, generally under the shoulders. It's going to fit differently in your body. So just do a little bit of exploration. And so I like to curl my fingertips in like I'm gripping at the mat. So curling the fingertips in, and you can almost imagine that there's a little bit of space underneath the palm. So if you curl your fingertips in, maybe there's a little bit of space underneath the palm, just enough space for a jelly bean or a gummy bear, just a little tiny space there. It's going to help turn on the arm muscles. And so that external rotation that we found moving into Urdhva Hastasana, we're going to find that again in this shape. So first and foremost, we'll tend to the core. So draw the pubic bone to the navel, knit the low ribs together so that you have a strong core. Curl the fingers in, really have a strong foundation on the ground, and then turn the elbow creases to face the front of the space. And you can turn them out and turn them in a couple times just to really get a sense of what's happening here. Really get a sense of how that turns on, and really looking for that to create a bit of broadness across the back. I can't really demonstrate it because it's happening internally, but you should be able to feel the difference between when your arms are rotated internally and when you turn your elbow creases to the front. One of the ways to explore that is to imagine that you had jar lids underneath your palms. And so imagine that you're taking that grip and you're turning the right jar lid off to the right and the left jar lid off to the left. And notice if that engages the upper back in any way. So knit the low ribs together, draw the pubic bone to the navel, and then engage the arms, external rotation, reach the elbow creases towards the front of the space. Length through the neck, shoulders are relaxed, and your gaze is just ahead of the nose. So you're not looking downward underneath you, not looking too far ahead. There's length in the neck, space in the neck, and the gaze is just off on the nose. And so now, keeping all this work in the upper body, you can begin to explore high plank, or you can do it on your knees, walk your knees back a little bit to take a little bit more weight into the upper body. You can also tuck one toe at a time, tuck another toe at a time. And just remembering all those things that we found in Tadasana. So the feet are active, the feet are engaged. Even though the toes are pressing down into the mat, there's still an activity there. You're reaching out through the heels. And then that reach of the heels comes up into the knees and engages the front of the legs. And so from there, you draw the pubic bone towards the navel, knit the low ribs together. Again, checking in with the upper body, reaching the creases of the elbows towards the front of the space, reaching out through the crown of the head. You can come down to the knees if you're working with that. Just shake it out. Holding plank is never fun. It could be fun. It's not fun for me most of the time. Cool. So find the location of the arms, what width feels good. It might take you a couple opportunities to really check in here, see what feels good. Step back into the plank. You can be up, you can be on your knees. Just notice what feels good there, where you feel space. And then bend the elbows, lower yourself down. Use an inhale, push yourself back up. And exhale to lower yourself back down. Hug your elbows in towards your ribs. Inhale, push yourself all the way back up. Exhale, hug your elbows into the ribs, reach the collarbones forward, lower yourself down. Inhale up, and push back and shake that out. So that dipping motion, that's what you would find in Chaturanga, without going into the real details of the serratus anterior, this muscle that runs right along the back underneath the armpit. If you pinch under your armpit, you'll feel a muscle there that feels like a chicken breast, a boneless, skinless chicken breast, or a piece of meat. So that's the muscle that gets engaged there. And we could talk about that for another hour, but generally, I think the really important concept here is coming into plank, reaching out through the heels, engaging the fronts of the legs, drawing the pubic bone up towards the navel so that the low belly is strong, it's on, it's active. The ribs knit together. So imagine the ribs are pulling in towards one another. There's external rotation in the arms, so the creases of the elbows are reaching towards the front of the space. And there's length through the neck. And take a big inhale here, get long through that entire line. Exhale, lower yourself all the way down to the belly. And so now untuck your toes here, and we'll explore cobra pose. So untuck your toes, bring your hands by your low ribs, and press your big toes down into the mat. Right, so press the toes into the mat so much that the knees begin to lift up. And draw the pubic bone towards the navel, engaging the low belly, knitting the low ribs together. Length through the back of the neck, length through the crown of the head. And then use an inhale to peel the head up, peel the shoulder blades up, and come into a slight back bend. And you can exhale and let it go whenever you're ready. And explore a couple rounds of that on your own breath, using the inhale to peel up the head, shoulders, neck, and exhale to lower it back down. And so still finding Tadasana in this shape, so the toes are pressing down. The fronts of the legs are working. There's an engagement of the low belly. And as we find this back bend here, what's really interesting about back bends is it's not necessarily about the back bend, it's about the crown of the head reaching so far forward that the head lifts. And push yourself back into child's pose, just to rinse that out for just a minute. Take any movements that might feel good. And so while you're washing that out, really thinking about back bends, it's an energetic line that reaches so far forward that it has nowhere to go but up. Think about like a roller coaster, how it reaches forward and then slowly arcs its way up. That's how your back bends should move. The head reaches so far forward that it begins to climb up. So come back down to the belly. Bring your hands by the low ribs, press down through the feet, lift the kneecaps up off the mat maybe, engage the front of the legs. Pubic bone to navel, low ribs knitted together so there's a strong core. And then use an inhale, reach the crown of the head forward, lift the shoulder heads upward, and then begin to find the back bend. And exhale, lower it down. And one more time, lift it up. This time maybe you push into your hands and come up towards upward facing dog. And exhale, let it all down. And push back to your heels. And grab a block if you have one or you want to explore this. We're going to move into the next posture, which is upward facing dog. And in the sun salute, there's, this section, there's all sorts of variability. It can move from, you can move straight into chaturanga, straight into upward facing dog. You can do the plank and lower down to the belly and come up through cobra, or you can lower to the belly and come up through upward facing dog. There's a lot of variation and a lot of room to explore there. And not one is better than the other. It's really whatever works for you that day. It's really personal to the day, to the salute, to the minute. There's no place that you're supposed to be. And that's what's really beautiful about the practice. So to explore upward facing dog, we did a little bit of this in practice last night with the block on the mat. Walk yourself out and forward. Rest the pelvis on the block. And the legs are just like they were in Cobra. So all 10 toes are pressing down into the mat, pressing down so hard that maybe the knees lift up. And traditionally in upward facing dog, this press down of the feet and the hands is so much that the pelvis lifts up off the mat. So that's why we're just using the block here, just to explore what that is like without actually dumping all our body weight into this shape while we're exploring it. So the arms are just like they were in high plank, pressing down wide, gripping, external rotation. And so again, we'll find the same shape. Pull your shoulders up to your ears and then roll them back. Right? And do that a couple times. Maybe you need to adjust the width of your hands. Collarbones are forward. There's a long line of energy out the crown of the head. So again, it's all Tadasana again. So upward facing dog, press down through the feet, engage the kneecaps to turn on the quads. Pubic bone pulls towards navel, low ribs knit together. Pull the shoulder blades up, pull the shoulder heads up, roll them down the back to open up the collarbones and reach the crown of the head up. Upward facing dog. And you can drop your knees. You can move the block if you'd like, and explore that without the block. You can explore moving from high plank, lowering yourself all the way down, and then inhaling through the back bend of your choice. So you can inhale through Cobra or upward facing dog. And push yourself back, explore that one more time. Coming up into the plank. Lowering yourself down with control. Maybe you explore what Chaturanga is like. Untuck the toes. Inhale through the back bend of your choice. There's energy up through the crown of the head. There's an openness of the collarbones. There's a press down of the feet, press down of the hands, and external rotation of the upper body. Push yourself back. Take a quick child's pose. Take a round of cat and cow. Just rinse out that back bend there. The thing with back bending, really important in both of those, shooting forward so much that you begin to come up. And so from upward facing dog, move into downward facing dog. So to explore this, how about we come into tabletop position and walk your hands 2 prints forward so that you can drop your chest down and come into puppy dog pose. So this is essentially a variation of downward facing dog where your lower body's in tabletop. And so we're going to explore the upper body here in downward facing dog. So really looking for a lot of length all the way from the fingertips up to the hips. And so the handwork is the same as the handwork that we've been doing. So pressing down through the hands, turning the right jaw to the right, the left jaw to the left to find external rotation of the collarbones, of the shoulder blades, of the arm bones, geez, and opening up the back. Right, and so maybe more so here than in any of the other shapes, you can really get feedback of how that external rotation, how turning the elbow creases towards the front of the space can create space in the back and create strength in the shape. Release that and come into plank. And push yourself back into downward facing dog. So now we're in the more traditional shape of downward facing dog. With downward facing dog, I think it's really important, and I really want to highlight that you can bend your knees as much as you want here. So many of the things that, having straight legs, bringing the heels to the mat, so many of the things that we see on the internet, we see in magazines just aren't possible for some bodies. Right, so your knees can be bent. Your heels don't have to touch the ground. And so we just practice the downward facing dog on the knees just to sort of explore that before we come into the standing variation. So with your knees bent as much as you need to, press down through your hands, roll the elbow creases to the front of the space to find external rotation in the arm bones. Reach the hips up. So again, finding the same things that we did, the upper body is just like it was in the upward salute, the Urdhva Hastasana, the standing upward reach that we found at the beginning of the sun salute. The shoulders are relaxed. There's an external rotation of the upper arm bones. Low ribs are knitting together, pubic bones pulling towards navel, and the hips are reaching up towards the back of the space. And so from here, you can begin to invite a little bit less of a bend into the knee, an opening of the back of the leg, but that's not the main priority here. The main priority is buoyancy of the pelvis and a strong upper body. You can go ahead and lower down to your knees. Take a break from that. Shake out anything that you might be feeling. We'll go into that downward facing dog one more time, and then we'll start to link all those together and do a couple rounds of sun salutes now that we've been through them individually, and really get into the body, get into the breath, and really feel how they all work together. So a good way to find your length of your downward facing dog is to come into your high plank. And while you're there, you can find your external rotation. You can find your hand placement. And you can find that length through the torso, and then push your hips up and back, up and back, up and back. If we were in real life, there's an assist where you can pull up on the hips. Imagine like a belt reaching underneath you and pulling your hips up towards the back corner of the space. It just creates so much length in the upper body. So imagine that there's a magnet at the back corner of the room that's pulling your hips up towards it. There's still external rotation of the upper arm bones. There's space in the back. The shoulder blades are not coming together. There's space, and the external rotation of the upper arm bones will help invite that space. Now take a big breath in here. Now exhale, look to the top of your mat. You can take little steps, you can take big steps, you can float, find your way up to the top of the mat on the exhale. Now here we are again, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana, long spine. Exhale, fold, hips come up, head hangs, Uttanasana. Press down through the feet, reach your arms all the way up to stand. Through Urdhva Hastasana, exhale, hands down through heart center, Tadasana. We'll flow through it with breath. Inhale, arms come all the way up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthen the spine. Exhale, plant your hands, step back into high plank and pause here. Find that external rotation of the arm bones. Reach out through the heels, take a big inhale from the heels to the crown of the head. Use your exhale to lower yourself down through the chaturanga or all the way to the belly. Then use the inhale, use the inflation of the lungs to pull the chest through. And then exhale, use the breath leaving to push the hips up and back to find downward facing dog. External rotation of the upper arm bones. Length through the crown of the head, space in the back of the neck. Buoyancy and height in the pelvis. One more big breath in. Exhale, bend your knees, step, step, or float to the top of the mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Long spine, open collarbones. Exhale, fold. Any amount of bend in the knees, hips are high, head is heavy, crown is facing down. Strong foundation, inhale. Use the breath to pull you all the way up. Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, hands down. Tadasana, mountain pose. One more, just like that. Inhale, arms up. Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, half lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, step, step back, plank, pause. Inhale, lengthen, find Tadasana in the plank. Exhale, lower down. Inhale through Cobra or upward facing dog. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, upward facing dog. Exhale, tuck your toes, hips up, back, Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Jar lids under the hands. Left turns left, right turns right. External rotation of the upper arm bones. Space in the back. Buoyancy in the pelvis. Any amount of bend in the knees. Big breath in. Exhale, bend your knees. Step, step, or float to the top of the mat. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Half lift. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Inhale all the way up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Tadasana. So flow through one round on your own. I won't cue it. I will do it if you want to watch, but I'll encourage you to explore on your own. We'll meet in Tadasana. Take your time finishing. When you finish, come to sit on a block, on a blanket, rather than ending with a traditional Savasana. Just come to a seat, a comfortable seat. And we'll observe the breath. You can let the eyes close or be heavy. We're observing the expansiveness of the inhale and the space of the exhale. Leave your hands where they are, or draw your hands together at heart center. And take one big breath in through the nose. And sigh it out through the mouth. And bow your chin to your chest. And slowly come back to the room. So I hope that was helpful. It's been a pleasure to practice with you. Just a couple things about that. There's a real deep dive into the sun salute. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. Those of you that are watching the recording. But I think really one of the most important things that one of the biggest takeaways that I could say about this is really, understanding the breath to movement link, really focusing on how the inhale fills you up and how it leaves and how that translates into those different shapes. We'll practice sun salutes, proper sun salutes in practice next Tuesday. It's the sun salute's more of an upregulating salute. So we wouldn't do it in the Sunday flow and restore. It's sort of an upregulating. It's a salute to the sun, Surya Namaskar. So it's really upregulating, and we wouldn't really do that in the flow and restore class. We wouldn't do it before bed, but maybe you want to introduce sun salutes into the morning. I know that when we first came into quarantine, I was leaving my mat out and doing sun salutes between Zoom meetings. They're quick, they're easy, and they're a great way to get the body moving and get the breath moving. They're so important. They're a foundation of the practice, and then once you really have a good handle on this, you can really modify them to fit whatever it is that you need. So I hope that this was helpful. If you're watching the recording, like I said, reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you all soon. Thank you so much.